want to thank everyone who's in attendance, and hopefully the hundreds of people who will see this as a YouTube recording later as well. But in any case, thanks everyone for attending. This is a webinar in an ongoing series from the International Pest Risk Research Group, or IPRRG. I'm so glad that we're picking this up again, and I would say, everyone, I hope you listen. If you have questions, I will monitor the chat. So if people have questions beforehand, during the thing, if you would put them in chat, or if just hold on to them, because we will have time at the end to for discussion. And again, once this is all done, we'll package it up as a recording, and it'll be out there to share. So I'm gonna leave it there, Rose, because I think you could probably do a better introduction than I can. But again, thank you, everyone. We hope that people find these informative. I have found all of them to be really great. A nice addition to the stable of things that we supply and have been able to supply even through the pandemic for IPRRG. But in any case, Rose, if you will take it away from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everybody. My name is Rose Souza Riches. I am the Vice Chair of the International Pest Risk Research Group, and I'm also the Seed Health Manager of the International Seed Federation. It's lovely to have you all here with us for this webinar, where we'll have Bénédicte Lebas. She is the technical lead for the regulated pest list here at the International Seed Federation, and she will present on this specific initiative and the work that is done by the vegetable seed companies. It is very important for me to highlight all the activities of this group, the IPRRG, and I will put a website link to all of you on the chat, so you can go and have a look on this fantastic international organization. And without further ado, I would like to hand it over the floor to Bénédicte, that she can start with a presentation on the International Seed Federation Regulated Pest List Initiative. Bénédicte, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rose. So I'm just going to share my screen to present you the presentation. Here we go. So yes, so as Rose mentioned, I'm the technical lead of the Regulated Pest List Initiative of the International Seed Federation. And so what is International Seed Federation? The federation was founded in 1924. It is a non-governmental, non-profit making organization that represents the interest of the seed industry at a global level. The ISF activities include disease resistance, phytosanitary matters, plant breeding, seed health, seed treatment, and trade rules. So now, what is this regulated pest list initiative?
Bénédicte,
yes.
Just a minute. Can you put on the slideshow?
It is. Oh, no, it's not. Sorry. Here we go.
Now it is. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. So the initiative was started in 2007. And this is a database that contains information on regulated pests of international traded seed species. Can someone turn off his mic? I don't know, so I can hear some background.
Ik vind gewoon zijn connectie niet.
So this is based on a thorough scientific assessment to determine whether seed is a pathway
Recharge connect. Hij zegt dat hij moet opladen.
Pests that are regulated.
Ik heb geen.
And this is based on the knowledge and
oplaaddingetje heb ik laatst
industry in managing the risk. The database currently contains 15 crop-specific lists, and this is available online from the ISF website. So what are the goals of this initiative?
Ja, ik moet nu tijdens het tikken. Ik moet hem nu aan zijn. Ik kan hem niet.
Excuse me, Margaret, can you please turn off your mic?
Ja, ik moet hem hier opzetten, maar kennelijk is dat niet goed gegaan.
Sorry, I keep going. So the goals of this initiative are to provide science-based information on crop pest association that pose a risk to seed health, to support scientifically based phytosanitary requirements, to promote the harmonization of national phytosanitary regulations for the safe movement of seed worldwide. So seed-borne pests are a global concern because of the international dimension of seed trade, and because all the countries in the world are exporting or importing. So when a country imports seeds, there's a risk of introduction of pests. And when a country exports seeds, then there's a seed is a potential source of pest dissemination. So what is a seed-borne pest? So according to ISPM 38 on the international movement of seeds, seed-borne pest is a pest carried by the seed externally on the seed surface or internally on the seed coat, endosperm, perisperm, embryo, that may or may not be transmitted to plants growing from these seeds and cause their infestation. And how do pests access the seed? So there are three ways: through the ovary wall, through the vascular system, or through the floral part. There are also alternative sources in which seed can transmit, the pest can be transmitted, and this is through or during harvest, through environment and human activities. And the seed-borne pests have been classified in three categories. One category is the pest that can transmit via the seeds directly. This is also called seed-transmitted pest. This is the case, for example, of Acidophora citrulli on watermelon, or tomato mosaic virus on tomato. The second category is when the pests transfer to the environment and then infest the plants. And this is the case, for example, of Phytophthora brassicae on brassica, or Sclerotinia sclerotiorum on tomato. And the third category is when the pest cannot transfer to the host plant. And in this case, the pest cannot establish. And this is the case, for example, of frost that are host specific. So in the first two categories, seed is the pathway in some cases, and while in the third category, seed is not a pathway. So what is the assessment process? So the assessment follows the principles of international standard for phytosanitary measure, like ISPM 38. And the assessments are processed independently and reviewed with rigor to ensure quality information. The process relies on the participation of ISF members who are the specialists of the crops and knowledgeable on the pests. So into a bit more detail, so it's divided in three stages. The first stage is the initiation for the identification of pests regulated on internationally traded seed. And for this, we compile a list of regulated pests based on government-regulated pest list and the additional declarations provided on phytosanitary certificates during international trade. And regulated pests can be quarantine pests when it's not present in a country, or regulated non-quarantine pests when it might be present in one country, but it's localized. The second stage is the pest assessment to answer the question, is seed the pathway for the regulated pest? And for this, we use the scientific publication, a range of information that may include pest biology, host range, geographical distribution, modes of transmission, and epidemiological studies. And the pests are classified into four categories. Yes, there's enough evidence for seed being a pathway. No, there's no evidence that seed is a pathway, not a host, or pathway not proven. And I will go further on these cases later in my talk. The last stage is the pest management. So for this is when seed is a pathway for a pest, is to identify the management option for reducing the risks. And for this is again based on scientific information and also the knowledge and experience of the seed industry. And it may include, but not limited to, detection method, seed treatments, seed cleaning, resistant varieties, field inspection, production in an area known to be free from the pathogen. So for the stage 2 and 3, we need at least 3 different pathology experts, and 2 persons will independently assess each pest on the list, and the 3rd person will review both assessments and propose final statements. And this way, the assessments are processed independently and reviewed with rigor to ensure quality information. And my role is to coordinate the assessment to make sure the wording is aligned with the current wording used on the database, to check the references, the quality of the references, and also provide the technical feedback in case of disagreement or to complete the information. So here's just a slide to show you in the last 2 years, about 20 participants from 10 countries were called in to help for the pest development. And this is important to have people from different countries because the import or export requirements are not the same. So then we would have a more complete list to have people from across the world involved. So what does the database contain at the moment? So to date, there are more than 1,300 regulated pests that have been assessed. That comprise 9 different types of groups of pests, of which fungi is the most represented, which is about 32% of the pests assessed. And to date, we have 15 crop species pest list, from bean to watermelon, a range of Solanaceae, Brassicaceae, and cucurbits. And as you can see on the number of references cited, so almost 5,000 references, this is really the backbones of the database. And this is very important to verify the original peer-reviewed papers. It is crucial to retrieve those and to critically assess experimental results to check the robustness, interpretation of the data, to make sure we have thorough scientific assessment. And this can only be done with the participation of specialists on the crop species. And it is also important to be aware of the life cycle of pests. Like, for example, some pests only live in the soil, and therefore they cannot be associated with seeds. This is the case of some nematodes that attack underground parts of the plants and roots. And this is another example of an insect where it can feed on the leaves, which have a stage in the soil, but it's not related to a seed. So in those cases, no, seed is not a pathway. Another aspect to keep in mind is the differentiation between experimental host versus natural host. Some plant species are commonly used as experimental host, for example, common bean, cucumber, tomato, but there is no evidence of being a natural host. And for example, this is the case of Arabis mosaic virus on brassica, carrots, on common bean. So this is another case where crop is not a natural host, and this is important to have this differentiation, as it may not happen in the field. And it's not even associated with seed in this case. And more papers only report the detection of pests on seeds using, for example, molecular or serological assays, without the confirmation of transmission from seeds to plants by conducting biological assay experiments to confirm or refute transmission from seeds to plants and to cause a disease. And in those cases, we tend to classify a pathway not proven until there's no evidence to prove otherwise. So now to go on the overall conclusion of the assessment of this database. Interestingly, So about 350 pests that have been assessed. Crop is not even a host for those pests. So there's, it looks like countries are asking for controlling pests that are unable to induce disease on a non-host crop. And this is, I put it here, a couple of examples. Acidorax avena on cucurbits is not a host, or in the case of Arabis mosaic virus, that is only an experimental host for some species. The next category, where seed is not a pathway, which represents about 47.5% of the pest assessed. And yes, there is information to show that crop is a host for the pest, but there is no reference found indicating seed is a pathway. And this is, for example, the case of some nematodes. So in total, there are about 74% of the pests assessed that are regulated, but it doesn't seem to have the support evidence to be that way. The next category is seed a pathway. For this one, there is the scientific evidence to show that seed is a pathway, and that represents about 11% of the pests assessed. And this is based on all the scientific information that could be found to support that evidence. And in this case, there's a need for management options, and we provide, when available, the information related to detection methods, seed cleaning, or other options for mitigating the risk. And below is just some example of bacterium, fungi, insect, nematode, virus for which seed is a pathway. And the last category, which is the gray, I would say the gray category, is like for the ELISA when you're not sure if it's a yes or no answer. This is the seed pathway not proven. And there are about 14.7% that have been classified in that category. And within that category, we can sort of classify them in 3 subcategories. One is that the evidence, is not verified or proven. Like, for example, Candidatus liberibacter, Solanaceae arum carrot. The second one is the evidence are limited or doubtful, either because there are limited data supporting that, or the information has not been repeated by an independent lab. This is the case of tomato leaf curl New Delhi virus on cucurbits. And the last subcategory is the evidence is conflicting. So some paper may say, yes, it is transmitted. Some papers say no. And this is the case of potato spindle tuber virus on tomato. So during the assessment, it has been observed that some pests are regulated at genus or family level, like Fusarium, Bruchidae, Meloidogene. An assessment cannot be done at that level because not all the species within a genus or a family have identical characteristics. And this is why ISPM 38 recommends that pests are assessed at species level. So what's next on the RPLI initiative? So we are always looking for adding new crop pest list. And for this, we carry a survey among the members to decide on the next crop. And in the last survey, the first 2 crops were peas and okra. So okra pest list has been finalized. There are 30 regulated pests on this list. And peas is being finalized, and there are 88 pests that are regulated being assessed. And the next 3 for which pest lists will be developed are artichokes, runner beans, and radish, and they have just been initiated this year. And what about the existing crop pest list? So there's a need to keep the information up to date, and this is a big task. And this can be done, ISF members can notify us, or anyone actually using the pest list from the website. There's a way to notify us if they see any error, which can happen, or if they are aware of new scientific information. And also we do incidental revision when we are aware of new regulated pests. And we also aim to revise existing crop-specific pest list as often as possible. And in that aspect, so again, based on a survey, which pest list to revise first? The first one is tomato. And we have 9 volunteers participating with about 90 new regulated pests to be added. And we aim to have it complete by the end of this year. Other piece of work that we do at ISF related to the regulated pests initiative is to spread the word about this pest list. And we do also publication, like on the industry magazine. So for example, we did one on just a general overview of this initiative. Another one on a specific pest, tomato leaf curl nudillivirus, an emerging pest of Cucurbitaceae and Solanaceae. And a more recent paper on the overregulation of seeds using the eggplant and maize pest list as case studies. And all this information can be accessed from the website. It's publicly available. And last but not least, it's just a snapshot of the database. So this is how it looks like at the moment, but we are in the process of upgrading it. So just the first 2 columns are about the crop itself. And there's the next set of columns with the purple heading pest. So it's about the scientific name and common name and the type of pest. Then the next set of columns with the blue title is the pest classification. So here is really the scientific information to support the classification of the pest with the relevant references cited. And in this case, if the classification is yes, it is a pathway, we provide information on detection method when available. We always promote any international recognized method if available. And the last set of columns is about any mitigation method that can be used to mitigate the risk of the spread of the pest. And that's it. Any question?
Thank you so much, Benedict. I don't see any questions on the chat, but you're welcome to be able to raise your hand, your virtual hand, so we can take a look. I would like to just ask you a couple of questions and just warm up and see how widely used by the governments you believe that the regulated pest list initiative from ISF is. Do you believe that there is an understanding of what it is, and do you believe that it is used?
And that's a very good question, because I guess the governments have their own team, that they do their own assessment. And I have a feeling that maybe they are not so aware of this database. So I think this is really a matter of spreading the word and also, to present the database and I guess increase the collaboration with regulators about the database.
That's great. Frank, you have your hand raised?
I do. First I want to say that was great. I really appreciate you guys. Just that snapshot of the database. This is a great resource. I think what resonated with me the most was in the assessments in the first part, we were talking about your percentages. It was about 11% of the pests represented a risk, and then about 14% was an unknown. And I was like, that's actually not a shocking sort of ratio. Like I'm not surprised to see that. I'm sure you would love to reduce that 14% to 0, and I hope you can. I think this question of overregulation, like that's really something I hadn't really thought about before. And I think, you know, hopefully we can help IPRRG and other organizations, we can help promote this database, because I think overregulation is a real risk, especially when regulators and policymakers aren't really aware of the issues at hand. So, you know, whatever whatever we can do, please, you know, reach out to IPRRG. But anyway, that was great. Thank you so much. I like to see that. Let's share the link to the database as much as we can. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
So Frank, one thing that we can do is we can share, perhaps put the link on the IPRRG website as well. That would be.
We will do that. We will put that as a featured resource.
It's also a very important tool for, I guess, the industry that would like to know, you know, is this pest regulated on such crop? And if they need to export seeds, then they can, you know, show the information to the regulators about, you know, this database as well.
That's for sure. What I would like to hear, and this is something that I know you can present it really well, Bénédicte, is that what we're going to do going forward. Have we stopped? This is all the work for the ICF Pest list? Tell us, there is so many of our colleagues here on this call. They would love to hear what is your next.
Well, for me, it's always important to you know, to grow the database. I think there are so many different crop species that are internationally traded that, of course, there is a demand for more crop-specific pest lists. Unfortunately, it takes time, so we do our best to do more and more. And also, as important is also, you know, to keep the database up to date, because scientific information are evolving fast. And there is and in taxonomy as well, you know, they might change, so then there's confusion of what is what. So it's really to keep it you know, up to date as well. And also in terms of the database itself, you know, to have a more I guess user-friendly database and how it looks like now, I think would be a big improvement as well. Easier for the user to find information and to look for it as well, and to promote it. Always, you know, writing some publication to you know, on case study or whenever needed and appropriate.
Oh, that's a very good point. So we're moving the database to be more dynamic and more user-friendly. So by the end of the year, the information is still going to be there, more new information is going to be there, but the look is going to be different as well. And hopefully that everybody will like and will be able to find the information they need much more easy. I don't have any further questions. Frank, do you have any from your side? I don't see any hands raised from me.
I do not see any other hands raised. I do have one question, and it's I don't know, it's not really open-ended. It's just sort of something returning to that issue of the unknown. So, you know, in the assessments you've done so far, we have 11% are a risk and 14% are unknown, and within or unresolved. We won't say unknown, unresolved. Within that 14%, there were those cases of conflict, and I was, so I guess that's my question, is looking at the cases where there's conflicting information. Is there, what can ISF do, or what can be done to sort of resolve those conflict questions? Like, setting aside that there's obviously a need for more work on certain species and certain species groups, but if there's a conflict, what's the path forward to resolve that?
So I guess, you know, we assess based on what is published. And sometimes, you know, there's not all the answer to our question. And so this is why it's very important to retrieve the original paper, because sometimes you might see some review paper, but the interpretation may be slightly tweaked. So it's really important to go back to the original paper and to critically assess, the experimental design, how the control in place, the size of the experiment, to make sure that the data that are provided are robust. And then still, you may get different answer depending of, which cultivar has been used, which strain or isolate of the pest has been used for the experiment. So I guess until there is clear answer, we can't get rid of all this unknown classification. But there may be some that we can have a look again, and based on the latest information or related pests of the same groups, that can sort of point towards an answer that is more direct. But that's why we need at least 3 different persons involved, because we all come up with our different way of looking at the picture, and to have the conversation and come to a consensus.
So I think that's the right approach. I'm curious, does ISF have resources, or can they tap into resources for additional research to sort of fill in or resolve a conflict or fill a gap? I'm not putting on the spot. I'm just sort of curious about, if there's that sort of research, like directing research, if there's a mechanism for that within ISF or any affiliated entity organization.
It did happen for some cases for maize, for example. I can't remember the name of the pest. Initially, so the ISF members that were involved in this pest list were contacted to look about this pest. And then someone suggested to contact a researcher, a specialist on maize of that disease. So then, it's happened. Yes, I did contact that person to try to get more information, to get another feedback, another opinion on that. So yes, so it does happen that we can, look for the experts in the research area to get the answer. Yeah.
So Frank, another thing as well is that it is something that we're looking for, that perhaps we will start to look how we'll be able to do research. It is a discussion that we have internally. So I guess it's a question that watch this space.
Very good. So Rose, I don't see, so Bénédicte, thank you so much. But I do not see any other questions. I'd say we should plug the International Pest, the IPRRG 2023 in Nairobi, and hopefully people on this call and others can be there. And the link is in the chat, but if you go to the pestrisk.org website, along the top banner, one of the options is IPRRG 2023. We started to flesh out that page. So that would be my plug for that. So if you can join us, it'll be fun. They've always been fun meetings, so we would love to see people there. And I'll leave it at that. And Rose, I'll let you close this out any way you'd like. And thanks. Thank you again, Bénédicte. That was really nice. That was I'm very excited. I think that we should promote the database as an available resource on the IPRRG website and via all of our social media as well. So we will work on that. That'll be a topic, Rose, for one of our upcoming meetings. We should figure out how to make that happen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Frank. And thank you so much for everybody for being here. Thank you, Bénédicte, for the excellent presentation. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you guys soon, and hopefully on the next webinar here organized by the IPRRG. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.